My name is Esther Mushiri, and I have officially started recording this session as I welcome all of you to the Mentors Parlor today. Excited to have the team that makes the parlor quite exciting. Just listening to the two of you speak, Hursh and AJ, it's a pleasure. And today it's interesting. The conversation you're going to drive is one that most of us go through when we say, whatever it takes, I will get my dream come true. But the realities of the falling and the waking up, the scratches, we don't talk about them. And so my imagination when I saw this name in the poster was that that is exactly what we were going to be discussing. And so it's exciting to hear what AJ has to say at your young age. And Hursh, I'm sure you've had your harsh realities in business, especially in Kenya. So for me, it's a very big welcome to everyone and looking forward to an engaging conversation, a lot of questions, and a lot of learning as well. This recording will be available in our YouTube channel in less than a week's time, and we shall announce once it is up and running. So for now, a big karibuni sana. If I could ask AJ to kindly unmute and start off for now.
Hi, my name is AJ, and that's short for Allan. I will be talking about doing whatever it takes to make a business happen in Kenya and the harsh reality of actually trying to do this in Kenya, the legal and the right way. So that sounds a lot more boring than it actually will be, hopefully. And before we go much further, I think the first thing you should ask yourself is, are you willing to do whatever it takes to get what you want? So before we even talk about the things that you can do to finesse the system to your advantage, you need to remember that luck is a dividend of sweat, and the more you sweat, the luckier you get. Ray Kroc said that. He was the guy that used to own McDonald's. So remember that as long as you persist and as long as you continue working towards whatever it is you've chosen to work on, then you shall get luckier and luckier, and you only need to be right once. Now, there are different types of businesses that you can start in Kenya and in general. So you can either be a company that creates products, or you can be the business person who buys things for a cheaper price and sells them for a profit. That's what we call flipping. Or you can sell your skills as services to other people. And what exactly is the problem with the system in Kenya for us to say that we need to finesse it? For us to want to finesse it, there must be a problem. And the current problem can be summarized in this sense, basically. Brokers, absurd pricing, and high startup costs make it a painful experience to start a business in Kenya. And this applies to most, if not all, businesses. And in this particular talk, we'll be going over what you can do to get around this thing. So here's a typical Kenyan business life cycle. You have an idea, but before you execute that idea, you have to register the business. Then after you register the business, you have to get the permits that allow you to run the business. And then, and only then, will you start executing on the business, at least if you're following the books. As you will later find out, that is not what we will be doing. So this is the order I would recommend. And that finger is pointing towards what has changed. So as soon as you have the idea, execute it. Do not register the business. I realize that may sound a little illegal, but the point here is to put you in the best position to succeed eventually. So get the idea, start working on your product. any money that you will have spent on registration and permits, which can potentially be in the hundreds of thousands to millions, that money can go back into investing into your product, and you can create a better product. And if you have a better product, then you get more customers. More customers, more money. More money, then you can register the business instead of doing it the other way around, which is register, get the permits, and then execute. By the time you're trying to execute your business, you've run out of money. So what I suggest, idea, execution. There's other steps that come in between this, which is planning, obviously, product development, but basically go from idea to execution, then register and get your permits afterwards. Otherwise, there's no way to tell if your business will work if you don't try it. And there's no point, yeah, and there's no point in trying to start a business with a disadvantage by going through this process and spending all your money but having a poor product. You will simply be guaranteeing yourself failure. So try and execute as fast as possible. The registration and the permits can come later. So when it comes to coming up with ideas, there's actually quite a number of businesses that wouldn't work if they had been started in Kenya. And examples of that are Google, Facebook, probably LinkedIn. Most of these businesses would not work if they were in Kenya, and here are the reasons why. So the types of businesses that would work in Kenya are actually, one, difficult to observe businesses. And this can be because of the difficulty of tracking how much a good or a service is worth, and because of using online services to provide your business. So when it comes to pricing, there are businesses that have prices that are explicitly known. So let's say you wanted to start a clothing brand, for example, and you wanted to compete with Woolworths, or let's say you wanted to start a milk company, then it is a relatively well-known fact that milk should be between maybe 50 bob and 100 bob, as an example. So it's going to be very, very, very hard to trick your way out of the numbers. So difficult to observe businesses are something like if you bought second-hand clothes at Gikomba and went to sell them, there's such a large variation in the possible amounts you could sell at that it is going to be difficult for authorities to observe your business. And as a result, that means you can probably get away with reinvesting more of your money into your business and growing. So if you bought something from Gikomba, you can either sell it at 200, or you can, as an example, you can sell it at 200, or you can sell it at 800. But there's no real way of proving how much someone paid for it. So if you tell the government, oh, I was only paid 200, there is literally no way for them to know how much you were paid. So those are the types of the first type of businesses that can succeed locally. This is all my observation, by the way, so take it with a grain of salt. And then, secondly, you need to create a business that makes money from the get-go. This may sound like an obvious thing, but there's quite a number of companies that started off not making money. Like for starters, let's start with Facebook. I think it took Facebook about 7 years before they made a single coin. And they were trying to figure out, they were getting users and trying to figure out how they can monetize those users. Google, same thing. They were not making money initially. They just knew that this is where people wanted to go if they wanted to find anything. So in Africa, it's going to be very, specifically in Kenya, it's very difficult to try something like that because the nature of investors that we have here is not the same as the nature of investors that we have in places like Silicon Valley. So here, the difference is the investors want to see returns coming in as soon as possible. While if you are in Silicon Valley, they may invest in a small chance of succeeding in the long term, while that is not necessarily the case in Kenya. So if you try to pull off a Facebook within 7 years, probably you wouldn't find enough people willing to give you money when you've told them, oh, I don't yet know how I'll make money, but I plan on getting this many people. Very difficult in Kenya. So start making money from the get-go if you want to have a higher chance of succeeding. And the last type of business that works really, really well and something that you should try to do is creating a business that has cash flow. In the beginning, profit does not matter as much as growth. Multiple companies have operated without a profit for a while. Examples of that are Amazon, Google, Facebook. And what they generally do is they make sure that they have consistent cash flow, but the money that they do get, they reinvest into the company and the company grows. So they are losing money and they keep reducing their costs. They are losing money, but they're gaining a larger market share. So think of it as sacrificing short-term profits for long-term profits. Basically, sacrifice the short term and then win in the long term. And if you sacrifice in the short term, you grow, and then once you've grown, it's much easier to create a sustainable large pool of profit. Okay, so the last part of this, I like to keep my talks very short so that you can have a longer Q&A. The last part of this is how you can finesse the system. So there's really multiple ways that you can do this. The first one that we talked about, there's not going to be any slides from here because I don't think this points are necessarily socially acceptable in all cases, but here are some ways that you can finesse the system if you're trying to start a business again. So one, try and earn foreign, but invest locally. Most foreign currencies probably, speaking of Europe and the US, those currencies are stronger than our currencies, and you can get way more money doing the same thing that you do here for less money. So earn your money foreign, earn your money in another country, and then come and invest back in Kenya. So probably something that will pay you maybe $200 in Kenya may pay you $1,000 in the States. And how you do this is simply by A, try and establish an online presence, and then B, if you can, export. So exporting is particularly going to apply to people who create physical products. But if you have intangible products, then you have a lot more to play with, and you can basically scale exponentially. Your costs will not increase as fast as your revenue does. So try and figure out how to create an online presence, and then earn foreign, invest local. The second thing, do not register your business immediately. Test out the idea. The money you would use to register, use that to try and create your products and try and improve on that. Understand your customers, obsess over your customers. And once you have all that going for you, then and only then should you consider registering and adding the permits. Then another thing is, if you're going to offer services, work as a contractor instead of working as a general organization. Not only will this allow you to simply pay the withholding tax, which is about 5% instead of paying corporate tax. I'm speaking from what I know, but working as a contractor will also, it will generally save you money, because paying 5% is definitely going to be better than paying 30% for you. Then build up your credit with the cash saved from not registering your business immediately. Make sure that you have, again, going back to the point of cash flow, make sure that your business has cash flow, because cash flow is what is going to help you build your credit with the banks, even though you're not yet turning a profit. And then invest in assets, and those are things that help you when you're doing your business. So, for example, if you have a delivery business, you might have some motorbikes. invest in those because they also help you build your credit because they can be used as collateral. Now, the question is, why would credit be important? Because credit will allow you to invest in your growth without losing any of your equity. Sure, you'll pay some interest, but the interest you pay will be less than the amount of equity you lose if you are right when it comes to your business. And then again, prioritize growth over profits and make sure you measure your business at every single stage. So if you're let me give an example. If you're selling books online, right? And you want to maximize the amount of revenue that you make. If you're selling drinks, let me give drinks because I'm involved in a business that has drinks. So if you're selling drinks online and you want to increase your revenue, generally there's this 80-20 principle. I think it's called the Pareto principle, and the principle says that 80% of your results will come from 20%. So whenever you're executing your business or whenever you're trying to run things, then make sure that you measure everything along the way and understand the metrics that indicate success for your business. So in the cocktail business, you can say maybe the number of cocktails someone buys is directly correlated with their interest or probably long-term or lifetime value. So what you do in this particular case is observe the people that buy the most cocktails and then find out what they have in common. And then instead of trying to focus on the broader market, try and focus on those people who bring in the 80% of the results. And yeah, focus on the 20%. And then as a result, you will please the 20% and the other 80% will follow suit. But if you try to please the crowd, you will forget to please the people who really matter because you try to treat everyone as a general customer. What you want to do is find out who your die-hard fans are and then focus religiously on them. So yeah, for now, I think that's all I will say. I don't want to recommend too many illegal things, so I'll take any questions now.
Wow, thank you so much, EJ. Indeed, towards the end of your presentation, there were quite a number of exciting illegal things to do. I would only imagine that maybe you're making those suggestions is out of experience or having listened to people who have tested them out. Would you mind maybe speaking as a story? Is there someone who has tested your approach and succeeded? And why wouldn't we go the conventional way of have an idea, register, and do all those other things?
Okay. Is there any cop in this?
No, we have no COP, so you're safe.
Okay. So personally, what I have tried is I've tried starting multiple businesses that would have otherwise been impossible had you followed the traditional way of registering. So one of the things I'd say is, for example, the whole luxury face mask thing. We initially were going to, when we were starting the business, we were being told that we need several things. We need a lab test. We need I don't know, like medical approval for the masks. This was before COVID was announced in Kenya. So you'd need to go through a lot of processes, and then you'd need to obviously register the business, do all that stuff. And when we were adding up the costs, it was coming to about the same amount that we were willing to invest in the business in general. So if we had put that money into registration and all that, we would never have started a business. There would be a business somewhere, someone would have made money in the government, but we would not exactly have gotten anywhere. But what did happen is we decided, you know what, let's invest in product. So we invested in product. We came up with systems and processes that we improved over time, and we tried to create a superior product. And as a result, I think we ended up getting somewhere, and we ended up making sales and actually making some money. And that would not have been possible had we invested everything we had in registration and all that, because all that stuff can come, it can come later. You're losing money in the beginning. It's an experiment, and yeah, there's a huge probability of failure. So you should just experiment and try it out. I've tried it out. I have multiple friends that have tried it out. I do not want to incriminate. So yeah.
Wow, thank you. Hush, if you can hear me, could you speak to uh, that idea of start, then step back and start the registration process? Is that something that you two probably have tried out?
100%. However, the only exception is if you're getting into something and you know, for example, you're getting into a pharmaceutical product, or you're getting into something, some industry which has certain mandates. You're starting to produce packed juices which are going to be sold on the shelves. Then you do not have that option, unfortunately. But if it is something which is not of that nature, I think what AJ has mentioned is 100% true. The only thing I would like to add here is it even helps you when you don't register. Sometimes when you start business, you don't know where it takes you. So I've gone personally, I've gone and knocked doors trying to sell something, but I was proposed something else. So your business can pivot at any time, and your registrations may need to be done again, or they may not be relevant. So until it doesn't totally make sense, or until the idea and the plan doesn't sink in, you don't have the proof of concept. I don't see a point actually spending money doing the registration, unless obviously you've set apart funds, and funds is not an issue, and all that. Then one is free to sort of go that approach. But something bootstrapped like AJ is talking about, I don't think one needs to register. And it even doesn't make you illegal, by the way, because there is no tax applicable, I think, under a turnover of 2 or 3 million. So you're an ultra small business. So I don't think it matters.
Okay. I'd hope so. I agree wholeheartedly with what Harsh is saying. And unless there are legal restrictions for whatever you're trying to get into, then yeah, I agree with what he's saying.
Wonderful. I wonder who else has an experience of the same. I know, Gilbert, you joined us quite early today in the parlor. Do you have any experience or any comment to make towards what has been shared by AJ and Harsh?
Perhaps any other questions, it would be nice to gauge the mood and the flow of this conversation.
Yes, we have some good new faces in the parlor today, so it would be great to hear their voices. That's why I'm picking out on Gilbert, but I shall also call out Ken, Linda, Stanley Masharia. If you could, any of you can unmute and share your experience of doing business in Kenya, and or not doing business in Kenya, and what do you fear most? Or what have you had that has probably put cold feet, given you cold feet, hence you haven't really started off?
Can I say something as they warm up?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
So way back when I started my computer business, I was like 19, yeah? And I thought business cards is the way to start a business. So all I had was a business card. And when I got an order and I was supplying my first computer to a company, they said, this is all fine, but where is the invoice? And I was wondering, what is an invoice? So then we had to go back, and then I found out from an accountant, you have to actually register a company, then it has to have something like a VAT and stuff like that. And speaking of ethical or unethical, since I had to get the money of the goods I'd supplied, I just put a fake number in, and then I registered myself later. I shouldn't be speaking on air.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, but please don't try this today. Yeah, our VAT numbers are verified. Have a correct VAT number. It's an offense.
Mukuhi Masharia, one of our great mentors in the Mentors Parlor. I know you're also an entrepreneur doing business. And actually, allow me to ask this question, and I'm not putting you on the carpet. So feel free to decline to answer the question. Have you tried to do business with government, and how easy has it been? And is that something that you would encourage the youth of this country to pursue?
Good evening. Thank you, Esther. Good evening, everybody. So I have done business with government, and more recently, I've actually tried to bid, directly, and that has been a challenge. Normally, my business with government has been contracts with an in-between, a bilateral or another partner. Perhaps there is, the World Bank or the USAID. So then the contracting bit is taken care of at that point in time. But recently I have tried to do some with one of the county governments, and it's really, I'm still in the process, because one of the things, the pre-qualifications, there's one thing that you need to be pre-qualified. And those processes, what I have learned is, like, for the counties, they're still not quite clear. The county staff are yet to understand what it means, or when the pre-qualifications should happen. So that information flow is not very forthcoming. And then also there is the part of what is in it, what is in it for us, that's also a challenge I faced, how. So yeah, the procurement, not the people I'm dealing with directly, the technical people are very clear on what they want, but now the procurement process, that sometimes, at least in my first experience, it's been a challenge. And I guess I've always shied away from it, because I know people who have been in it, and there is always that aspect of a kickback, so but I'm still there, soldiering on, hoping that there can be some light at the end of the tunnel around that. I hope the pre-qualification, I guess the important part is the pre-qualification aspect, to pre-qualify. But I guess also the question is that information on pre-qualification, where is that information? Who has the information? And does the county government themselves as departments have the capacity to know that it is time for us to pre-qualify our intended suppliers? So that's what I can give. So I think there's a lot of things that need to be put in place just to streamline and cut off for loopholes. Thank you.
Can I answer that, if you don't mind, Esther?
Please go ahead.
Okay, so I've been dealing, and I can say that with confidence, say this with confidence, what I'm about to say, because I've been selling to the governments at least for the last 15 plus years in the different countries. And selling to the government means essentially tenders, because above a certain limit, it has to be a public tender. Below a certain limit, it's 3 quotations and stuff like that. So we can do a whole talk on this, because this is very, very interesting. Yeah. sorry. To cut the long story short, you have to know or you have to map a tender before you actually bid for the tender. So the tender usually you pick up on a newspaper is already been, I'm trying to find out the right words, is already closed for you. It's no longer open. As long, I'm talking about the reality, the practical part of it. You're free to bid and go through the process, but it's a very slim chance you'll actually win. In sales, it said if you're bidding a tender from a newspaper, you're a poor sales guy. The bids are mapped before the tender comes out. So what that means is what exactly Rachel pointed out. The first thing we map out is the procurement and the finance. Because two things you need to know is, are you eligible? Is there something in it for me after all you go through? Is my money going to be paid on time? Because even if you pre-qualify, you are an eligible supplier, you need to know if they're going to pay you on time. So you need to have the finance with you need to have the procurement with you, and you need to have the users with you. The users are the people who are going to buy your goods or services. So it's IT, it's consulting, XYZ, the relevant departments are your users. And they rarely are the barriers, by the way. The biggest barrier are the procurement and finance, as Rachel again pointed out. So this work needs to be done before. You have to know the customer in and out, because it's not only about winning the tender. Imagine you won a tender, but now you're trying to chase payments, and it's been months or years, and you wonder, if had I known this before, I would have never got into this. So you need to get to know that, have I not got, had I not gotten, you need to know that before you bid. And by the way, this applies also in the corporate sales, or when you're dealing with corporates. These two things are the most important things and determining things whether you're going to do business with the customer or not. So when you do the finance, when you do the procurement, when you do the end user, and you make a checklist of your qualification, you make a checklist of you cross-check your costs, you put the chai kidogo, see if it's making sense for you, and only then you should go and bid.
Okay.
Now,
Quick question.
Yes, go ahead, DJ.
So, I think maybe other people are also wondering this, but how do you find the tender before it gets to the newspaper? Hursh.
So, okay, now we are getting into sales. So perhaps we are diverting from the main subject, right? But I'll answer this. So what happens is, when you're starting a business, you already, I'm presuming, you already have a certain target market in mind. All right. So let's say I'm speaking on behalf of Rachel for a second. I'm looking at the county governments to sort of market my services. So what I would do is I would pick up 2 or 3 counties that are closest to me, because logistics-wise, it's easier for me to get to Nairobi, Kiambu, Kajiado, 3 or 4 counties, right? So without waiting for the tender, I would start mapping. I would start visiting these guys. I'm already assuming you have 1 or 2 connections on the user level. So the user level can help you get into your finance and connect you to the finance and procurement. As you connect with those guys, then you have some deeper conversations with them, ask for those pre-qualification procedures, blah, blah, blah. Secondly, every government, be it county center or banks or corporate, they usually send out the pre-qualification notices in the newspaper. It's normally when the financial year starts. So if you're looking at those, the county staff can already advise you on when do you expect those things to be out, what documents will you be needing, so you can prepare yourself beforehand. So let's say I walk into the county government of Kiambu, they give me a list of documents. This is January, but they say, hey, this thing is going to come out in June. So I've got 6 months to prepare and qualify my company. In the meantime, I map the finance guy to see if the finances are going to be in order. Because remember, even if there's a tender will take at least 2 to 3 quarters, if not more. Very rarely tenders, depending on the value and the urgency, are tenders decided in a matter of weeks or month or a month. It doesn't happen in governments. It takes months because of the procurement procedures, the bureaucracy, and the procurement laws. They just cannot award, right? So it gives you enough time to prepare. So you have to know whom you're selling to answer you.
Good answer.
And otherwise, let me also add this one very quickly. If you don't know where you're selling, you're risking yourself. You're risking your time, efforts, and money. You may end up supplying, you may even end up winning the contract, but the chances are you may not be paid or something may go wrong. So it's always good to know your customer before you deal with them. You're better off not wasting any of those resources rather than getting into something messy.
Okay.
Now, I'm wondering who among us in this parlor tried to do small businesses and had a challenge. And I know Ruri has a passion for supporting the youth in starting businesses or getting productive and not sitting idle. Ruri, could you speak to some of your initiatives of supporting young people to get into business? And I know AJ suggested that start off before you even register. And I think that's also a strategy you have tried out when supporting, for example, the young people in Kawangware to do stuff to test it out. Maybe you can speak to that experience and how it is going so far.
Unawares. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, as Esther is saying, I have these, can I call it an entrepreneurial mindset? So I always try and push the young people whom I see have a skill or a certain eye for business, just to try. Mine is just try. What can go wrong? Just do try. So my approach is very simple. I normally tell them, I normally tell people my simple business ideas that will take between 10,000 to 50,000 and make me like 500 to 1,000, let's say, in a day. So I've always encouraged the young people to pick such small businesses that input is little, output is little, but if you diversify like into three of them, if each is giving you 500 per day, that's almost 1,500 in a day. I'm sure at the end of the month, if you do the math, that's almost someone who is working, paying taxes, especially given that they say 75% of Kenyans earn 50,000 and below. So yeah, there's some the challenge I see is one, the biggest one is the will and the passion to see it through or see it work. Normally the young guys start very passionate, make some sales very passionate, push, but when things get tough like this year of COVID, then along the way you start hearing that business is not doing well, your biashara iwezi, such kind of things. Number two, the other big challenge is the understanding of finances, that there is you and there is the business. That separation is very thin among the youth who are in business. Money from business is like his or her money, which is a big red line if you want to grow the business, because it's very easy for you to spend money from the business on personal things, and then you can't grow the business. So those are the two big challenges I see. In terms of registrations, I'm with AJ. I normally tell them, don't register first. Let's first do the business. If it picks and along the way you need to do registrations, then we'll do the registrations then. But for now, let's work like it's they are known what as a juakali, but with very key official tendencies. for purposes of growing the business. Yeah.
Thank you, Ruri. I totally agree with you. And just to speak to some of the issues that were raised about the challenges of starting small, Gilbert is texting and saying that the usual challenges are taxes and fear of KRA running into your business and closing it down. And then there's a second issue of how returns are done. The startups, they usually don't know how that is done. So, what would you say to that? Hursh, I can see your hand is up. Maybe you can speak to the issue of taxes and KRA and lack of knowledge that startups have. They don't know what to do.
I had a question for AJ before I answer the KRA part. May I?
Please go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I want to throw myself under the bus. Yeah, I mean, it would be a nice question to ask AJ as well as the audience. And I'm coming from the point of view of the entry barriers or the startup barriers, right? I think the second or third slide that AJ pitched is they're either brokers, middlemen, XYZ. In my case, I had very unique problems. I'm a foreigner, I'm not a Kenyan. Barely been in Kenya, so I don't know the who's who. I didn't have a consulting background, so I had a zero profile, a zero POC, or a zero credibility, as I mean, to put it a bit crudely. So I didn't have anything to testify myself when I got into consulting. I fumbled my way and I tried to open a few doors, but I would love to hear some suggestions. How would a foreigner with no connections, literally no connections, yeah, get into a business like consulting, for example?
Okay. So
What would you suggest?
So I think the first thing I'd look at is where do you think what do you think you want to consult for? So once you figured out the service, then find out where your customers are, not your customers, the people who will you'll offer. How do I put this? People who work with the people that will be your customers. Where do the type of people that you want generally hang around? And how you can find out is, in most cases, obvious. So if you want to consult for corporates, for example, you can simply just visit one of the, let me call them, high-end restaurants that normally have a lot of corporate meetings. You can ask one of the staff members, tell them that you're new around here and you wanted to know where the corporate guys generally go to maybe eat or hang out, and then you can go there, meet one person, introduce yourself, and once you know one person, as I said in the previous talk, you only need to know one person. So once you know one person, they will introduce you to other people, and those people will introduce you to other people. So yeah, so basically just generally find out where your customers or people who work with your customers are, and then ask the people who associate with them. And then from there, now go where they generally hang out, befriend one of them. That's at least that's how I try. Another way is getting. I'm speaking in your context, but if I was coming in as a 20-something-year-old, I would probably search around for who the most popular, or rather the people who go to most corporate events, and find a woman that goes to those corporate events, and then befriend her, and then let her introduce me as this new guy that she met, and someone who may be interesting to them. So that's what I do. And some of that advice is not mine; it's Jay-Z. But yeah.
Can I try?
Sure,
Please.
go ahead.
Yeah. Ash, I was in your shoes. I think I know what you say, what you're talking about. I was in a neighboring country, and I know one of the biggest challenges of setting up a business as a foreigner is the ability to set up and make the business official as if you are in your own country. So registrations, things to do with taxations, government requirements, even yourself in terms of your stay. I understand that question. So um, this was my solution. Lucky enough, I went to school with a lot of friends who were locals. So my solution was that I used a couple of the trusted ones, not even use. I partnered with them, and they became my local interface in case I needed anything. They're the guys who are the go through for me in terms of registrations, in terms of dealing with tax issues. However, the business was mine. I was running it like mine, but in terms of dealing with local issues, I would let them handle them for me. It made it easier for me because for them accessing these offices and people was much easier than me trying to do that until when there was a time when East Africa community actually worked, and if you are an East African business, restrictions became a little bit easier for you. Then I took more command of the business. Yeah, so my approach would have been at least have a local face or someone who can represent you locally as you establish and learn how business operates in that environment or that country. Then as you understand how business goes, you start taking more responsibilities and more power from the local partner. But this has to be written down in agreements uh, so that you don't lose your business. Sometimes business might peak and the other guy might think, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks. What would you say, Ruli, about the acquisition part? The legal part is very clear. It's a hurdle. It takes time for you to understand. It's controversial, but you don't try to perfect it. So you manage to register and all that. But how do you actually start acquiring business and opening doors as a foreigner? When, especially in Kenya, where you need to know somebody to get business.
Um, okay, actually, let me say this. It's not in Kenya only. Most countries, like right now, Tanzania, if you're Kenyan, it's very hard for you to get business. So again, like I have said, I normally had these locals who would help me a lot in terms. They were my friends. They would point doors to me. Go meet this guy. I've spoken to him. I come talk to. Let's go for this meeting with you. That way of, like AJ was saying, the introductions was easy. Number two, performance or delivery. Actually, that spoke about me a lot in terms of delivery. Um, Lucky enough, where I was, Kenyans have a reputation of delivering because majority of them are the CEOs in big companies. Most of the big companies, Unilever, what have you, they bring CEOs from or managers from Kenya. So if you would go in such companies, you are so lucky because you find a Kenyan either somewhere who will instantly connect with you. And if you don't, then reputation, the reputation is very good. Like, oh, I Kenyans, when it comes to XYZ kind of work, you Kenyans deliver than our local people. So that thing of delivery, when you get a task or when you get a contract, when you get a job, you do the best that you can do. Always brought much back to me through referrals, through recommendations,
Referrals.
and it helped build the profiles such to an extent that when time came, I would work in some offices, and when I put down my profile, I did not need to say I was a foreigner. The foreigner thing was gone. The profile spoke for itself. Yeah.
Can I add
Okay,
something?
thanks, Rudy.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's very good. Someone wanted to add something?
Yes. So I think another thing that Harsh had asked is, assuming you do not know anyone and you do not have any friends in the country that you're going to, then the first objective would either be to, because knowing the who and who is going to be hard. So know someone who knows someone, which is you can go meet the receptionist or secretary at KICC, for example, or you can ask where people like you, because there's going to be other foreigners, ask where people like you are, and then befriend those people, and then get one of them that you can trust, and I think they will give you the information that you need to maneuver around.
Great. Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks,
Harsh,
guys.
would
Yeah.
you like to address the question that was raised by Gilbert?
Yeah, I can help him. I can help him.
So
I
you
know
are
what he means.
suggesting that he should get in touch with you privately?
Yeah, because it would be good to have a discussion. Otherwise, we'll consume a lot of time on this call.
Okay.
But if he has something specific now, I can answer it very quickly.
All
No
right.
issues.
Gilbert, do you want to unmute yourself and perhaps say something so that Harsh to answer you?
Hi everyone, Gilbert here. Just I didn't have to talk, so I was trying to chat. But all in all, we run an IT firm, a business doing software, and a lot of times you realize getting into government institutions to get business is usually a tough one. But if we can usually, because of course the other issues that I raised was when we're starting up was a bit of you fear taxes, you fear how to return, you fear, and also getting an accountant to work for you when you get some money and know how to properly allocate which one is government, which one is yours, was also challenging. But at least we've somehow we've beaten that challenge. The getting, I was in two categories. I was in youth and the people with disabilities, and getting these categories to come to your side is usually a bit of a task. So it's a bit of a struggle, even if you are trying to see yourself given an opportunity to get these tenders, and you still cannot be able to get. So I think that's just maybe Esther wanted to hear my voice, but um, if I can see how that can be sorted out and get through this, somehow can help. Thank you. I have my voice here, so kelele ni mingi.
Asante sana Gilbert. For sure,
Okay.
Harsh can be able to help you, and I will ask Harsh to perhaps put in your contact and on the chat so that Gilbert can have it and he will get in touch with you.
But let me quickly
Okay, thank you.
answer. Let me quickly answer and make a couple of comments, and I'll be very honest and upfront. Yeah. So some of these categories in the tenders that we see are political initiatives. Okay, because this is a part of a political agenda which has to be demonstrated by the government that it's being implemented somewhere and it's happening. So a lot of these things on the government are for records. Okay, so they create these categories and different categories in a way. But not, I'm not saying that the youth tender does not go to the youth, or the one for the disabled one doesn't go to disabled, but it is created for certain people. It is just a public. I mean, the face of it is just for the government to show sometimes that we are we're trying to do something for the youth and the disabled, but it is not actually for the general public. So what Gilbert you're trying to say is what 90% of the Kenyans would say. I mean, if you did a general survey, 95% of the Kenyans will never win those contracts. As much as they are youth and they might be disabled, they completely fulfill the criteria that's needed. It's not, because tenders are allocated before they are printed or before they are released. So the same answer that I gave Rachel, but if you want to figure a way around, then we can talk, because that's a lengthy discussion. Because I know, and I've sold software to the government. That's what I've done. Software and hardware is what I've sold to the government most of the times. And I've worked with companies like Technobrain. So we've knocked doors with some of the top guys in the bureaucracy. So we exactly know how it's done. And uh, I think we can have a detailed conversation offline.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hursh, for that insight. Now, I want to go to the other side of doing business. We are all told that Kenya is an agriculture country, with most of us trying to go into agribusiness. And I think 2 weeks or so in the Pala, we had Mr. Odipo talk to us about agribusiness. And I know someone in this Pala right now who is a serious farmer in Bungoma. And Mr. Nabutola Wafula, nataka kukuweka kwa carpet to ask you, now that you do so many things, you have fruits, you have pigs, you have chicken, you have everything. When you have a high produce and you want to go to market, are there possible hurdles that you could face, that you could speak to, for any young person here that may want to go into agriculture or agribusiness?
Certainly. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, Esther, for that challenge. It really is not a challenge, it's a good question. There will be hurdles. I think I've had Hursh talk about how tenders are awarded and so on, and that's true. But let's look at the value chain. The value chain from the time, you grow that fruit, or that chicken is ready and so on. There are many factors that come into play. So let's break it down a bit so that it's much easier. It's not a walk in the park. Let me just tell you that it's not a walk in the park, because there is between my brother in the military says that between a friend and yourself, there's an enemy. That enemy could be the broker or the person who has the information. In this country, we also have somebody who's the finder's fee. Is anybody familiar with finder's fee? Hursh or anybody else? Do you know about finder's fee?
Oh, that one is right there. Yes.
Yes. Now it's equal also in terms of you have the produce, but you don't know the market. So the issue of information, the information flow, the timing. So one is information. Do you have the right information for the right market? And do you have the product that fits that market? That's one. Two, do you have the linkage? And here I'm thinking, being on your own is very hard. It's best if you come together, okay? You come together, organize some guys so that you have, what do you call it? Some sort of like a cooperative or a chama, because when you can now sort of negotiate better prices, and also you'll get more information than if you try and go it alone. The other is just the risk factors that we know. The risk factors are like the season, okay? Right now, it's been raining in Bungoma very hard, okay? The problem with that is there are people whose beans are going to rot in the shamba because they don't need the rain at this point. But there are other people like myself who needs it. Why? Because I planted a lot of bananas, and the bananas need water. I've also planted a lot of passion fruits, and those again need water. planted lemons, and I'm in the process of planting veggies, but veggies are drowning in some other area because of swampy area. So yes, there are hurdles, and yes, there's a way of going around them. One of them is partner with others. You can't do this solo. You can't. My experience. Work with other people of like mind, people who are also doing the same thing. Esther has challenged me, so I'll tell you one example. This morning yesterday I got a call from a friend telling me somebody needs 100,000 liters of honey every month. I don't know if that, can you fathom that? But 100,000 liters or kilograms of honey every month. Now, no one person could really supply that. But if you have, like I've tried to do, got some friends, even relatives, and told them, can we do beekeeping? And if they're interested and so on, and we get a good guide, it can work. So those hurdles are there, but again, they're not insurmountable. You just have to debug, like those people who do IT. I think I see Allan, Jeremy is here. So AJ, you are the youth, and there's also Rory and others, about this IT business. So the people who can quickly, create a spreadsheet and then debug where are some of the likely hurdles and anticipate them and develop a program to that effect, a project in this case. The other challenge, of course, is the inputs, because it's not always guaranteed that you'll get the quality or the quantity you want at the price you can get. But to me, with all those, the one thing I'll also just say on the positive side is that variety is necessary, because if something is failing, if, for example, maize is not working, maybe the price is too low and so on, you can have something else to sell. So you can't, although my oldest son says, Dad, spend 90% of time on one thing like the piggery, and then the rest you can spend on other things. But I don't think it works like that, really. He's a chemical engineer and a financial analyst, a chartered accountant. So of course he knows his figures. But the circumstances under which we work, you need to diversify, and you need to be there. Like now, I'm missing Mateka. I'm here, but as soon as we have that Koroga, I'll go back to Mateka. That's where I belong. Not that I love you guys less. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your experience as a farmer. And we can actually hear the love that you have of your piggery and your banana. And I think that is the passion that we are talking about. So when Hursh and AJ came up with the title of this presentation today, doing whatever it takes to succeed in business. And I think that is where we are hearing all these tricks of how do you navigate to make it, and who do you talk to, who has succeeded, who has jumped the hurdle before you. And that is the space that we are trying to provide at the Pala, where we speak about real issues that are affecting us. And we can see that people are actually succeeding, even during COVID period. We are still doing business. I think for me, the biggest takeaway from COVID is the resilience and the determination to make it and to succeed. And so for me, the takeaway that I'm getting from the conversations that you've all shared is never give up. And what you're going through, others have gone through it. Others have succeeded. Ash, thank you for confirming that indeed you have knocked doors in government and succeeded. So maybe some of us who are young and have IT innovations and we don't know how to take them to the next level can actually speak to you, and you can help us scale those to another stage. So those are conversations that we can take offline. But I want to open up to anybody who has a question. If you want to type it out, if you don't want to say it, share an idea. Jerry, are you an aspiring entrepreneur, or are you looking forward to being employed? Maybe this is time for us to share what are our fears. Jerry Maura, if you can hear me, maybe speak to What's your passion, and what are some of the thoughts that cross your mind as you think of venturing into the world of business? And as Njeri thinks maybe somebody else here has an idea, something that they would like to share. Ken, perhaps you want to speak?
While they're all thinking Ken, Jerry, and so on, I just have one more thing to add.
Yes,
That
Wakama.
with agriculture, with food, you can't go wrong, because whatever else people do, they'll eat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
True.
must eat. So the idea that, with food, if of course the other parameters and other paradigms, but food is necessary. Even downtown Nairobi, there are a lot of restaurants. Hata wakati wa COVID, watu bado watakula. You remember the story of one sausage, 5 beers?
Oh yes, that one became a serious meme. Everybody made a joke out of it.
So it's food and drink are really things that we need to work into investing. But again, don't go it alone. Don't go it alone. Get other people who have. Les Brown says it's better to learn from those who have already done it than to go and make the same mistake. Thank you.
That's great. I want to invite AJ and Hush perhaps to speak. Gilbert, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just sharing something small about you talk of persistence and never giving up. Now, for us, we've closed office like 3 times, an opening and closing, and opening and closing. But all the same, it's that persistence and that you want to move it forward. Most of the challenges were employees. Most of the challenges were, rental and stuff like that. And sometimes you feel I'm the entrepreneur of this thing. I think I can run it from home. All of a sudden, you feel like you cannot do it alone, and you have to get people, and you cannot bring them to your home. So you have to get an office. All of a sudden, you have a problem with it, and then you need to close. So all of those challenges are all over, and everyone has its own way of making sure you get back to it if you are running to be an entrepreneur. Until you are successful is what I would call we never give up, as you said.
So for you, what is that thing that keeps you there? Is it that you strongly believe that your goal is somewhere in 2 steps, so you can't give up on this? Or what is that thing that keeps you going, even when employees walk away from you, when you have no rent? What is that thing that makes you continue?
I don't know. It's a passion, but I think I can manage. I can pull through, and this the thing that I always feel. I think I can do much more than when I'm employed, and you have the feeling that if you're given a chance to fly and get people under you to implement your ideas, you can do much better than doing it in employment, because you get restrictions, you get to work under someone else's vision and mission. But if you have your own mission and vision, you get to do things the way you want it done and accomplish a lot. We have actually been saying reliable solutions. So if you're working for a company that does not provide that, and you have yourself to provide, then I think that has been the one that's pushing me to be that reliable, to be that genuine implementer of things that you think they are very right to do.
Wow. Thank you so much for that sharing. And I believe you have inspired somebody to never give up, to always rise up and focus on whatever their dream is. Looking at our time, it's 20 minutes to 9, and I want to invite AJ and Hush if you have some wrap-up comments, insights that you'd like to share with us as we come to the end of our session today.
Sure. I can go first, and I think there's a few things I'd like to add. And the first one is as soon as money starts coming in, do not try to show the world that money is coming in. Remember that still waters run deep, and even though you're making more money, act like you're not. And that's how you will end up growing. Otherwise, the moment you try to flaunt that you're making money, things will start getting tough for you, because there's a lot of people who would not want to, will either not want to see you succeed, or B, would want to eat from your plate because they believe that your plate has more food. So if you can show them that your plate has almost nothing, then yeah, just continue working how you were working before you had all the money. And then if someone has betrayed you once, remember that they can betray you again. So if someone betrays you and you get back into a business engagement with them, tread with caution, I suppose. And the last thing I'd say is, situations do not make heroes, situations expose heroes. What that means is, if you want to find, in this particular context, if you want to find real talent, do not, real talent will not be out there looking for you to work on your next big idea. Real talent is probably quiet. So try and find those people before the situations arise to have an advantage of others. Hopefully that makes sense. I think that's all I'll say as my closing remarks. And thank you for coming. Do not give up.
Wow, I like that. That real talent is silent, and deep waters, no, quiet waters run deep. So
The
those
waters
are
run deep.
takeaways that we can pick as we hold on to that big dream that we have and never give up, no matter what. Hursh, your words of wisdom as we end the parlor today.
I want to very briefly touch upon what Gilbert just mentioned. So, the topic of the day is whatever it takes, right? And whatever it takes is underlined. So, your passion has to be very clear. If what you're doing is not your passion, you will never do whatever it takes. Okay? You'll, because it's an easy way to quit. If you don't, if you're not passionate, you'll quit. Simply, you'll not go through the grind. That is number one. So clarity is very important for me. You have to know. The other thing, the very interesting two-liner I came across, and I've made this like my mantra, is write your goals with a pen, but make your plans with a pencil. It's profound. You don't know. Every single day could mean a pivot, could mean a change, could mean an alternate route or detour. So don't be firm or rigid about execution. Be fluid on execution as long as it takes you where you need to head. Because remember, there's no single water body in this world that goes straight, but they all still meet the ocean. Yeah, so it will go zunguka zunguka. You don't have to worry. It may not be the way we want it to be, but in the end, that is how nature works. So this is a very important realization that I had, and also a point of self-correction, because I was very firm and in a way adamant of this is how I'm going to market myself, and I saw myself failing. So that thing actually opened my eyes and said, no, you need to be fluid and flexible, and then you have to know the market and whom you're selling before before you actually get into any sale or before you get into the business. So please do your research and you do your homework. The chances you will not go wrong.
Wow. Thank you.
That's it for
Thank
me.
you
Yes, sir.
so much, Hursh.
I hope there
Wise
was
words.
wisdom in it.
A lot of wisdom indeed, that we need to write our goals in ink and our plans in pencil, meaning you can erase all your plans, you can change them, you can. And then it's true, rivers are not straight. They meander and they go under places and they go through bushes and forests and they all end up into the big ocean. So it doesn't matter how many meanders and stops and mountains we have to climb. The idea is to keep moving, and we shall get to that goal that we have written with a pen. So I want to thank you all For those of you that are new in the Mentors Parlor, we request that you share with us your email address and your phone number, because once this video and others are ready on our YouTube channel, we would be happy to share them with you. So please, before you sign off, share that your contacts with us. Otherwise, for me, it's a big thank you to Allan, Jeremy, and to AJ, the two resilient men that just are willing to speak it as it is, to say the truth about what we all go through. And sometimes we think we are the only ones that are suffering. So thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you, AJ, for the fantastic slides that you have shared. We will be, if okay with you, we would love you to share the slides with us so that the people that are in the parlor today can receive those slides from you. And we look forward to meeting all of you again on Tuesday. This is the space we meet every Tuesday at 7:30 to about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And next Tuesday will be a surprise session. And we are not going to reveal it. Of course, we'll see it in our posters, but please come and bring a friend. It will be our final session for the year 2020. So please do not miss it. The 6 mentors plans that we have been in this parlor will come together to share with you something that you do not want to miss. So mark the calendar, the link is the same, and we shall meet here again on Tuesday, 7:30. And so as we close, I want to invite somebody for us to wrap up here. The is none other than Wakula Nabuku.
What are your instructions, Esther?
Utuombee na utubariki ili tuweze kukutana tena next week, majaliwa.
Yeah.
So just
Asante
bless
sana.
and give us pray for a good night for us.
Thank you very much. Let's bow in supplication. Mungu Baba, tukushukuru kwa siku ya leo. Tukushukuru kwa uhai wa sisi sote, wale ambao waliwahi kufika hapa, hata wale ambao hawakuweza kufika hapa lakini walikuwa na nia ya kuja. Pia uwabariki. Tunashukuru, tukushukuru kwa kikao ambacho kimekuwa kina furaha kweli, na pia kinaelekeza hasa vijana wetu upande ambao ni wa manufaa kwao. Sasa tunapotawanyika, Mungu Baba, tunakuomba kuwa utuelekeze, utushike mkono na utupe neema yako yote, na utuhakikishie kwamba tutafika makwetu vizuri, na wale ambao hawajakula wakule vizuri na walale vyema. Kwa hayo machache, Mungu Baba, tunaomba tukishukuru na tukiamini. Amen. Asante sana.
Amina. Na kweli Kiswahili chako ni kizuri. Asante sana Wafula. You should have been a Swahili teacher at one time.